Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with Spellbinders and their July 2020 card kit of the month, and this month's theme is Vintage Mementos. I will apologize right now, one, because I did do a reveal like I always do, but obviously I forgot to hit record, or I deleted the video before I could upload it. I am so sorry. There will not be a reveal for this video, and this is a long video, so if long videos are not your thing, this might not be for you, but I do welcome you to stick around, and see what we create. So let's dive right into our cards, because obviously I didn't hit the record, and let's start making. So this has to be, yes, this is my favorite kit so far out of all of them. For those of you that have seen my previous videos, I love vintage, the vintage style, and the vintage look. So the paper pad is just perfect. From the die cuts to the pad, there were so many options and very difficult to choose from. I took one of the pieces of cardstock, which is absolutely beautiful, and then I took a floral and made that the mat in the back. I have these beautiful peacocks here that are already on that pattern paper, and I grabbed some of the ephemera from the die cuts. Now I did go around with my distress tool with my vintage photo. Now you all knew vintage photo was going to be part of this, right? I'm just saying, huge element for this, absolutely. But I'm also bringing in my brush. This is just an old makeup brush that I had, so it's very soft, and I'm able to tone down the white. Because again, you can see with that lock, there's a little piece of white that goes around it, but just me being able to use that brush, I'm able to dull that white and just give it the age look. Same thing with the flowers. You know, again, they're printed on white paper, but you can see just by using brush, I'm able to tone it down and it creates a really nice blend. I'm focusing on the placement of the key and the lock, and I'll be adding one of the numbers from the die cut set that will sit in between this. I'm looking to have an image at the bottom, which I already do, which was part of the pattern paper, and then I just added the flowers to come off to add dimension. And then I have the lock and the key up in the upper right hand corner. Now I'm just getting that piece from the die cut pack so that I can prop that up using one of the double-sided foam squares and just set that in place as well. I'm going to add the sentiment. Today is your day. So we're just going to glue that straight across. And that is our first card. For our second card, again, I'm using the pattern paper. I've cut my pieces. Know that the base, the very bottom of any paper, whether it's solid or the pattern, is always cut 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, as all of my card bases are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and they are side folding from the kit. So these are a standard A2 size card base. When it comes to the second piece of cardstock or pattern paper that I cut, there is no measurement. I am just cutting that and then placing it onto that base. I did set it on an angle, and now I'm just going around my pieces heavily with vintage photo. So here I can really have some fun with the vintage photo and then decide if I want to come in with my brush or not. When I come in with the brush, that means I want that white to be knocked down. I want it to go to the back. I want that to have just a little bit of ivory to it. I don't want that stark white. I'm going to get my panel up onto my standard A2 size card base, and then I'll be able to start layering my pieces. When I start layering, I'll use both liquid adhesive and also the double-sided foam squares that come in the kit. I do like to use my glue. I use the double-sided tape mainly for my layers, but I do like to use my liquid adhesive. That allows me time to wiggle that piece and move it into place if I have to. I'm going to set these flowers just below that aged music sheet, and that is a peacock there. And then these feathers are going to just come out from the peacock. I like to keep my pieces in place and just add a little bit of glue. That's the beauty of the liquid adhesives. It doesn't matter how much you use. You don't have to cover the entire piece. A little dot will hold that piece in place perfectly. I'm going to use the sentiment to my dear friend that will straddle across this collage that's sitting on the front. And that is our next card. So here I really dug into the pattern paper, and I wanted to use, so this kit came of course with the cardstock. It came with the 3D chipboard stickers, which is what I'm going to be really using today. Of course it came with the 6x6 paper pad, some sequins, of course the die cuts, which are to die for, and of course the stamp and the die set. Excuse me. So I cut into 3 pieces of pattern paper, and I also used the scraps as well. I'll always go back to those. So with this wooden background that I'm using, I'm going to layer all of this pattern paper. I am going to use, however, my liquid adhesive, because again, as I get closer to what the piece is, I may want to move these and just shift these around just a little bit. Again, just layering the strips. I'm breaking up while I want to see that pattern paper. I want it broken up just a little bit. And I'm also setting the stage for the sentiment that's going to go across this as well. This says, enjoy the moments. And even though these are stickers and they are pretty strong, I do add a little bit, as I'm shaking the screen so much because I keep dropping my glue, I do add a little bit of liquid adhesive. I'm then going to set the other piece, and if you notice, I'm not pushing back that white. I'm not using the brush or the vintage photo around the chipboard pieces. I also didn't use the brush on the pattern paper. There's the top pattern paper with the rose does have a very light background to it, and it is towards the white. Those two will complement each other, but that's why I didn't do that. For our next card, this kit also came with journaling cards, vintage journaling cards, which I thought were great. So I'm going to be using 2 of them to do a lot of the layering, and I am using some more of the die cuts when it comes from the kit. So I am going around each of these images with my vintage photo, and then I'm also going to go around my base pattern paper. I'm going to use the double-sided tape as I have been when it comes to putting my pattern paper in place. I do like to get my base pattern paper set so that I can then start layering. When it comes to the Spellbinder cards from their kit, I do a lot of collaging. I absolutely love the ability to collage when it comes to these cards. I think it makes them very unique, very different. It's a different look for them. What I also love about this kit, you could have 2 people, you have the same items, and you get 2 totally different results from it, which I think is really cool. Somebody may not collage as much as I do. It is something that I kind of gravitate towards, where somebody else could focus in on the stamp. So there's a lot that goes on. But when I have the opportunity to collage, I have to collage. So that, especially this one, this was all vintage. So, okay, back to the card. Sorry. So you can see I layered the the 2 journaling cards, and I used, as I said, some of the die cuts, and I have those layered as well. I did go around them with the vintage photo, like I said. But again, I really didn't push that white back too much on this one. I did like the fact that that did stand out just a little bit. And I do have the gold that's coming in off of the sentiment that says shine. So for this one, again, I'm using 2 pieces of the pattern papers. And I'm going to layer them together vertically. So there's going to be a strip down one side of the card. I'm using the music pattern paper, and then also they had another piece of pattern paper in there that already had a design on it, already had those elements to it. So I didn't want to lose those. I didn't want to take that away. So I kept that to the right, and then you just have this very thin border of the other pattern paper to the left. I pulled 3 of the chipboard stickers, and they are the music notes, and I have those going down where these 2 meet. Once they're set in place, I will then work on the sentiment, and I chose Life is Sweet when it comes to the sentiment. And again, a lot of times I am choosing the sentiments from the die cut packet. They have lots of choices available, large, small, different fonts, different ways of how they look, whether they're banners with fishtails or just, regular rectangles with the sentiments inside. For our next card, I did grab a couple of those journaling cards again, a couple die cut pieces, and also they have these die cut or chipboard, that's the word I was looking for, chipboard pieces. Now they are really stickers, and this is when I find that out. Just saying. So on the top part where I put the sticker, I'm just going to pull that off, but still add glow. Yeah, I'm fun. Yeah. So I'm going to place that on a piece of pattern paper, and then I'm going to cut the stuff that's hanging out from underneath away. I wanted that to have a different backdrop within the frame, because that is going to sit directly, of course, on top of the card base. Now, I'm not putting a pattern paper base onto this area, so I'm taking the journaling cards and everything and placing them directly down onto your standard A2 size card base, which you certainly can do. I'm cutting down the one journaling card with the peacock on it, just so that it looks like that peacock is coming out from underneath this Polaroid frame. And then I'm placing that down using my liquid adhesive. I'm going to place the die cut pieces, and I will cut those down within the frame. Now, some of them will stick out, but I want them mainly in the frame area. So that's going to be the bird, and then I'm going to trim down the floral image that I have there. And then I grabbed, yes, I forgot to go around my vintage photo. And then I grabbed one of the chipboard stickers as well, and that's going to sit right by the bird. I also pulled this postcard that I'm going to have woven in between the floral and the bird. So again, just by weaving your pieces, letting one part of it be on top, the other part being underneath, adds a level of dimension and gives the illusion that it's dimensional, if that makes sense. So sometimes you don't need your double-sided foam squares. By just doing that, it gives you that illusion. So I did weave that card just a little bit. I did cut off the excess from around the card, and that card is done. Again, we're going to layer our pattern paper. This one, I gave it a very rustic, almost Tuscany feel. And the reason why I say like a Tuscany feel is because it's all of the maroons. It's all of the dark colors. Here it is. I'm using one of those frames again, remembering that it's a sticker, so I'm pulling off the backing. Yes. I'm actually at first going to attach the pieces of luggage and this trunk. And have them sit in the back. So just like what I did with the other one where I put a piece of pattern paper, this I'm actually using pieces of the die cut, or excuse me, pieces of the chipboard stickers to be the background, and to create that 3D effect. I know, I'm having difficulty breathing. I'm going to have one of the die cuts coming up over the edge of the frame, and these are eggs with a lot of gold leafing going on. And then I chose one of the bigger sentiments that says darling, and I think just by that going along the bottom adds to the dimension and adds to the gold and the color of the frame. I'm going to remove the release paper. And then I'll place that down along the bottom on the angle. This will be placed onto the standard A2 size card base. And now that one is completed. So now I use some of the solid cardstock, and I cut that to be the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, the base piece, only because I love the shade of brown that we had there. I'm using one of the pieces of cardstock that, again, had an image already set onto it, and then just like when we art journal, just these light images that are floating in the back. So I cut it specifically so that those images would be seen. I'm going to place this down onto my standard A2 size card base, and I chose 3 words from the die cut pack. So I'm letting that pattern paper do the work. And there are many times where we can do that. Let your pattern paper do the work. The designs are already there. So the first sentiment that I'm putting down says, "For you." The next one that I'm putting down, and I'm just going to put some vintage photo around it because it is so close to the background, I felt it would get lost, says "Today." And then the bottom one, the last one, says "Always." Very simple. That's the card. I'm going to take a piece of the white cardstock and I'm going to dig into the stamp. So there's going to be 2 images that I'm going to stamp, and I'm going to use gold embossing powder. And that's it. I just want, to me, when I do see vintage or think of vintage, I do think of aged gold or brass, but not polished. Very, you see the patina, the age effect of these metals. That's kind of what I think about. Steampunk. I also see that with the gears and everything else that's going on. So I've stamped the 2 images, and I did the bird in the branch coming up, and then I did the nest below. There are some beautiful images in this stamp set for this month. And then one of the sentiments that says, "A little birdie told me." So I thought that was really cute. I'm going to put my embossing powder on, and then I will heat set that. Now I must not have put enough pressure down when it came to the nest, so I'm gently tapping that. If I tap it too hard, it all comes off. So I just want to make sure that I do have some of that gold that's going to sit there. So I'm just going to just make sure I hit that heavy with my heat tool. I will go around this piece with my vintage photo, again, to age it, both with the brush and my distress tool to go around the edge. But I think just with that gold and then a lot of that vintage photo coming around, already you can just make that image look vintage. I have my pattern paper here. I'm going to add my double-sided tape and layer all of this together. So once the first layer down, I will trim my card because I went down just a little bit crooked. That's okay. That's why we have scissors. And I'm going to offset these two. So instead of layering on top of each other, there are times where I like to take the paper, put one up to the top, and then the other one comes down into the bottom. It does help it to be a focal point, so to speak. I did grab one of the chipboard pieces, and I'm going to set that up into the corner. Finally, I do dig into the sequins, but I am very particular in the colors that I pulled, and I'm filling those in the image that I stamped and embossed for the berries. I'm going to grab my gold, my copper Nouveau drops, and I'm going to use that for the center of these sequins. Just to give it a little bit more and to make them just give it that pop of color. It's almost like a black and white, and then when you do like lips, make them red, it gives that pop of color. For this card, we did use I did use finally the die. So I have a piece of the pattern paper, I cut it on an angle, and then what I did was I measured the opening of the gold frames that you're seeing at the top of my screen. And I cut that down so that this would be in the back of those gold screens or frames. But I only wanted the blue to come down onto the peacock feathers. I didn't want it to be on the purple. I'm going to take that and put that onto the purple panel. This is all cut to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I am going to get this placed onto my standard A2 size card base. Once that's set, I'm then going to layer the 3 frames together. And again, I am going to use my, I'm going to use my double-sided tape. The border, when it comes to this die, it's 2 pieces. It's the frame, and then it's the insert, the inside, to cut out the inside. You don't have to cut that out, the inside. You could let that solid and just have the filigree or the flourishes coming off that. But I wanted it opened. So when you put that insert, it's literally perfectly 1/4 inch. So that's why I'm able to use the double-sided tape. I do like to use the double-sided tape, especially with the foil paper from Spellbinders, because it's foiled on both sides, which I think is great. But when you put glue on it, it does take longer to dry and it slides around. Kind of makes me nuts. But that's just me. Anyway. So once I get all the tape on the frames, I will start then pulling, of course, removing the adhesives and start layering these. So as I said, I did cut 3, and that's because I wanted it to have dimension, to be propped up just a little bit. You know, I think I didn't want to use the double-sided foam. I wanted it to look like a piece of chipboard, so to speak. So we'll get that set in place, and then the final will actually straddle. So you're going to see in the frame, you're going to see the blue on the bottom half, and you're going to see the purple on the top half. I'm going to make sure that it's set right in at those points. I pulled from the die cuts the butterflies and the bee. So the bee is actually going to sit in the center of this frame and actually straddle that blue and purple line. And then the butterflies are going to come up along the left-hand side. So we'll set the bee. And then we're just going to scatter the butterflies around. These are absolutely beautiful images. I'm a huge butterfly fan. And then they'll continue up that right side and then go off into the right-hand corner. And as always, using my liquid adhesive. To me, for me, liquid adhesive is the best thing. It grabs quickly. So those are the 10 cards that we made from the Spellbinders July 2020 card kit of the month, Vintage Memento. I do apologize for not being able to show the reveal. I have no idea what I was thinking. But I am not finding the footage at all. But I know I filmed it. Maybe I just didn't hit that record, as I said. So I do apologize. As always, all the links, if you want to know more about their cards and their, excuse me, their clubs and their subscriptions, are listed down below. If you're on your computer, click on the Show More underneath the video. And if you're on a mobile device, click the arrow pointing down to expand the screen. Make sure you do check out their blog and their gallery for so much more inspiration for all of their club kits. If you have any questions, please make sure you leave those down below as well, and I will make sure I get back to you as soon as I can. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd love for you to be part of my group. Maybe I can help give you a few tips and tricks along the way, or maybe I'll just make you smile. I hope everyone is enjoying their day. Continue, please, to stay safe and healthy as we continue through our challenge. But most of all, remember what's most important. Always be creative.